She thought he was just a quiet man who liked the corner seat. For 2 years, he came every Tuesday and Thursday. Never borrowed a book. Never asked for anything. Then one morning, he donated $4,000 to save the library. That was the moment something stopped feeling right. Because when she finally looked him up, she didn't just find a name. She found connections. Power. A network that didn't belong anywhere near a place like this. And the quiet man sitting in her library was not who he claimed to be. She wasn't supposed to look him up. Soraya Smith had a rule. She did not look up her regulars. It was not laziness. It was principle. People came to the library to exist without having to explain themselves. That was the whole point of the place. You could sit in the corner for 2 hours and nobody would ask you a single question. Soraya believed in that. She protected it. Which is why, later, when everything came apart, she would sit in her car and think about that rule for a very long time. It was a Tuesday morning in November. Crest Home was the kind of Illinois city that nobody moved to on purpose. It had a good diner, a bad mayor, and a public library that smelled like old paper and wood polish. Soraya had worked there for 7 years. She knew every shelf, every crack in the ceiling, and every regular by the sound of their footsteps. At exactly 10:15 the door opened. She did not look up from the circulation desk. She did not need to. She already knew the weight of that particular footstep. Measured. Unhurried. The kind of walk that did not apologize for taking up space. He went to the corner. Same chair. Same legal pad. Same dark coat folded over the armrest. Soraya knew him as Dominic. Just Dominic. He had told her his name once, 6 months ago, when he politely pointed out that a book had been placed in the wrong section. He had known exactly where it belonged. That was the irritating part. He never borrowed anything. Never asked for help. Never stayed past 12:15. She had noticed, maybe 3 weeks after he started coming, that a second man arrived around the same time each day. Quiet type. Sat near the periodicals. Always had a book open but rarely turned a page. She knew him as James. He had a library card. He returned things on time. She had no strong reason to think further about him. She had filed both men away the way she filed everything. Quietly. Neatly. Under the wrong category, as it turned out. At 12:13. Devon, her part-time program assistant, pushed a returns cart past the desk and stopped rolling it. Devon was 24, enthusiastic about social media, and firmly believed that all interesting people were hiding something worth finding. "He is 2 minutes early today," Devon said, keeping her eyes on the cart. Soraya did not ask who she meant. "Do not," Soraya said. "I am just observing." Devon. "He has very good posture for someone who only sits and writes." Soraya looked up for the first time. Dominic was placing his legal pad into his bag. Coat on. Precise as always. He passed the circulation desk without stopping and without looking at her. The door closed behind him. At 12:19 Soraya's work email made the sound it made when something came from the city planning office. She opened it. It was a formal notice. The library building had been flagged for a development review. She read it twice. Then she printed it, placed it in the urgent folder on her desk, and went back to work. The urgent folder now had 4 things in it. Soraya made a sign that Tuesday evening. It was not a fancy sign. She used the library desktop computer, a printer that jammed every 3rd page, and a black marker for the parts the ink missed. She taped it to the front window before she locked up. It said, "A city without a library is just a city." Devon arrived the next morning, looked at the sign, and took a photo before her coat was fully off. "Do not post that," Soraya said from the desk. "It is already posted," Devon said. "I said do not." "You said it after I already did." That means it does not count. Soraya opened her mouth. Then she closed it. She had learned over 14 months of working with Devon that some arguments cost more energy than they returned. By noon the post had 43 likes. Mostly librarians from other towns and one woman in Ohio who said the sign made her cry. Soraya found that excessive but said nothing. The real problem was the development notice. She had read it 4 more times. The language was smooth. Full of phrases like community renewal and strategic growth corridor. She had been around enough city paperwork to know that smooth language usually had something uncomfortable underneath it. She searched the development company name in the city planning portal. Hartwell Urban Solutions. Registered in Delaware. Crest home mailing address. She wrote the address on a sticky note and pressed it to her monitor. That afternoon she set up a folding table on the front steps and taped a handwritten sign to it. Save Crest Home Library. Sign here. By 3 o'clock she had 11 signatures. 7 were from the Tuesday Book Club, who had not read an actual book together since April. 1 was from Walter, a 74-year-old retired postman who came to the library every weekday and said he would sign anything that made the city council uncomfortable. Soraya liked him considerably. At 4:15 Devon appeared at the front door with her phone raised. I filmed you, Devon said. I noticed. You told the man who gave 50 cents that it was 0.001% of what we need and then you said thank you anyway. That is mathematically accurate. I posted it. Soraya looked at her. The comments are calling you their hero, Devon said. I do not want to be anyone's hero. I want to save a building. Those can be the same thing, Devon said, and went back inside. Devon sent screenshots with increasing levels of excitement. Soraya read each one with the expression of a woman watching a small fire she was responsible for but did not know how to put out. She turned her phone face down and went to bed. The next Tuesday Dominic arrived at 10:15. Soraya was at the circulation desk. She had the development notice in a folder beside her keyboard, a cold coffee she had not touched, and the sticky note with the Hartwell address still on her monitor. He came through the door and walked toward the corner the way he always did. He had almost reached his chair when he stopped. He turned around and walked back to the circulation desk. He stood on the other side of the counter. It was the most deliberate he had ever been about approaching her. He looked at the campaign sign Devon had taped to the wall. Then he looked at Soraya. I would like to make a donation, he said. To the campaign? Yes. Why? He paused for a moment. I value this library. She studied him the way she studied most things. Carefully and without showing it. How much? He named a number. Soraya kept her face completely still. That is $4,000. Yes. For a library campaign. Yes. She opened the second drawer and took out the donor form. She placed it on the counter with a pen. Fill this out completely. Name, address, employer. The donation will be listed publicly. We are a transparent campaign. Something moved across his face. Very small. Very quick. That is fine, he said. He filled out the form at the counter. His handwriting was extremely neat. Devon had appeared from behind the biography shelves and was pushing the returns cart with great slowness in their general direction. Dominic slid the form back across the counter. Soraya looked it over. Name. Address. Employer. Yoon Consulting Group. She wrote it into the donor log without changing her expression. Thank you, she said. He nodded and went to his corner. Devon was at the desk before he had fully sat down. $4,000, Devon said, very quietly. I am aware. He did not ask for a single thing in return. I noticed. That is either genuinely kind or genuinely guilty. In my experience, Soraya said, turning back to her screen, those are usually the same thing. Devon hovered. Are you going to search him? No. Soraya. We do not investigate patrons. You know my position on that. Devon pushed the card away slowly, saying something under her breath that Soraya chose not to hear. Soraya entered the donation into the system. Then she returned to the Hartwell Urban Solutions search she had left open before he arrived. She navigated to the Delaware Incorporation records. She clicked through to the registered agent's page. She stared at the screen for a moment. Same address. 2 different company names. One man's employer listed on a donor form sitting in her second drawer. She opened a new tab. She typed the address into the State Business Registry search. She started reading. Public records were free. That was the thing people forgot. Soraya submitted the request on Wednesday morning before she unlocked the front doors. She asked for all city filings connected to the Hartwell Urban Solutions development proposal. Meeting minutes. Planning correspondence. Every document the city held on the project. Then she waited. Walter arrived at 9 with his thermos and took his usual chair near the window. He had brought a folded newspaper and the comfortable manner of a man with nowhere urgent to be. James came in at 9:30. He chose a book from the new arrival's shelf, went to the periodical section, and opened it. Soraya watched him for a moment longer than usual. He did not look up. She looked at the corner. Empty. Dominic did not come on Wednesdays. She looked back at James. She filed the thought under things to return to and went back to work. The records arrived Friday afternoon. 41 pages. Soraya stayed after closing to read them. Devon stayed too, partly from genuine interest and partly because Soraya had bought sandwiches and Devon considered that an open invitation. They spread the pages across the reference table. The development proposal covered a full city block. The library parcel was listed as the land assembly anchor point. Soraya read that phrase 3 times. Without the library lot, the surrounding parcels could not be joined into the footprint the project needed. She kept reading. The project description referred to a regional distribution hub. A freight connection point serving transport routes across the wider area. She did not understand every detail, but she understood the shape of it. This was not about buildings or community renewal. It was about what moved through Crest Home and who would control that movement. The library was sitting on the most important corner of that plan. Devon found it first. Look at this one, Devon said, sliding a page across. It was a chain of company registrations. Hartwell Urban Solutions connected to a holding company. That company connected to another. For layers down, the controlling entity carried a single name. D. Yoon. Devon looked at Soraya. Soraya looked at the page. Yoon Consulting Group, Devon said quietly. The same employer name on his donor form. Soraya did not speak for a moment. Outside the library, the street had gone quiet. Most of the nearby offices were dark. The building above the shipping firm on Caldwell Street had one window still lit. He donated $4,000 to the campaign that is fighting a project his own company is behind, Devon said. Yes, Soraya said. That makes no sense. No, Soraya said. It does not. Soraya placed the folder in the center of the reference table where she would find it first thing in the morning. She wrote Hartwell on the tab in her clearest handwriting. Devon was already at the door with her coat on. She looked back once. Neither of them said anything else. There was nothing useful left to say tonight. Soraya turned the last light off. In the dark, the folder was still there on the table. Waiting. The same way the address on Caldwell Street was still there. The same way the name D. Yoon was still there. Some things did not go away just because you stopped looking at them. She did not sleep much that night. Tuesday came. Soraya was at the desk at 8 with the folder in front of her. She had read through it twice more over the weekend. She had searched his full name on Saturday morning and found almost nothing. A business address. A clean public record. A name attached to several property and consulting firms across 3 states. No arrests. No charges. One small mention in a regional business journal from years back. He was in the background of a photograph, half-turned, standing near the then deputy mayor of Crest home at a city event. She had nearly missed him. She printed the page and placed it in the folder. At 10:14 she walked to the front of the library and stood near the entrance. When the door opened at 10:15 Dominic stepped in and found her already there. He looked at her face and went still. "Could we speak in my office please?" she said. He followed her without asking why. She closed the door. She placed the folder on the desk between them and sat down. She did not say anything. She let him look at it. He looked at the folder. He looked at her. He did not reach for an explanation before she asked for one. "How much do you know?" he said. "Enough," she said. "Your company is behind the development. The library lot is the anchor point. You have known that for 2 years." "Yes," he said. "You could have redirected the plan," she said. "You have the authority. You have the means." She paused. "So why did you not?" He was quiet for a moment. Not the quiet of someone finding the right lie. The quiet of someone deciding how much of the right answer to give. "The plan was already moving when I understood what this building was," he said. "There were parties committed to the original footprint. Moving it required a valid business reason. Something that looked like a routine decision. Not a reaction to anything external." Soraya looked at him steadily. "That explains the timing," she said. "It does not explain the donation." He met her eyes. "Your campaign created pressure on the council to slow the review. A slower review gave me room to restructure the footprint quietly. The donation was useful to that." "So we were useful to you," she said. "Yes," he said. The word sat between them. Soraya looked at the folder. Then she looked at him. She thought about the 2 years of Tuesday and Thursday mornings. The legal pad. The coat folded over the armrest. The way he never asked for anything. She thought about what he had just said. Understood what this building was. She did not ask him what he meant by that. She was not sure she was ready for that answer yet. But she filed it. The way she filed everything. Quietly. In a place she would return to. "One more question," she said. He waited. "Are you going to fix it?" she said. "Yes," he said. "I am going to fix it." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked at the folder between them. "I need to think," she said. "Come back Thursday." He stood. He picked up his coat. At the door he paused for just a moment. Then he left. She sat with that long after she turned the lights off. He had told her the plan was already moving when he understood what this building was. She had heard every word. She just could not hear the part he left out. What the building was. To him. He had not said that part. She was not sure he had meant to say as much as he did. Dominic came back on Thursday at 10:15. Same chair. Same legal pad. He left at 12:15 without stopping at the desk. Soraya watched him go and said nothing. She was not ready yet. That same evening she was locking the front doors when her phone showed a new email in the campaign inbox. The sender was Raymond Pye. His message was short and polite. He represented a civic development foundation based in Milwaukee. He had seen the campaign online. He wanted to offer $50,000 in funding and asked to speak by phone. He said the money could be used for legal costs, an independent review request, or a formal public awareness effort. Devon called before Soraya had finished reading it. "Did you see the email?" Devon said. "I am reading it now." $50,000. "I know what it says. That is not petition signatures and retired postmen. That is a legal challenge. That is a real fight." "I know," Soraya said. She read it a second time. The language was clean and helpful and smooth in the same way the development notice had been smooth. I will call him tomorrow. She called Raymond Pye the next morning from her office with the door closed. He was warm and easy to talk to. He asked sensible questions about the campaign timeline and the council vote date. Then he asked one that did not belong with the others. He asked whether Soraya had come across any private business interests that might be influencing how the council was handling the development proposal. She kept her voice level. I have not found anything like that confirmed. We have heard certain things from people close to the process, Raymond said. If there is a connection between private money and council decisions, that would be very important to bring into the open. Regional media attention would help the campaign considerably. Soraya said she would think about it and ended the call. She sat at her desk without moving for almost 2 full minutes. He did not want to fund a library. He wanted a louder story. He wanted noise that would pull outside attention toward Crest Home and expose something she was standing too close to. The $50,000 was not a donation. It was a tool and she was the handle. She picked up her phone and called the number from Dominic's donor form. He answered on the first ring. She gave him the name. The silence that followed was brief and very full. I see, he said. That was what I thought, she said. She paused. He is not interested in the library. No, Dominic said. He is not. He wants the story bigger so something else becomes visible. Dominic said nothing to that directly. There is a woman who runs the bakery next to your building. Adrienne Cho. I think you know her. I do. Go and speak with her this evening if you can. She will give you some context I cannot give you over a phone. Soraya looked through her office window at the bakery. The lights were still on. How much does she know? Soraya said. Enough, he said. She recognized the word immediately. Adrienne Cho made tea before she said a single word. She moved through the back room of the bakery with the ease of someone who had hosted hard conversations many times before and understood that they always went better with something warm to hold. She set 2 cups on the small table, sat down across from Soraya, and looked at her steadily. Then she began. She told Soraya that her late husband had spent 30 years working in commercial property management in Chicago. He had handled building acquisitions for several firms. Some of those firms had done business with Yoon family property operations over the years, not in any criminal way, but closely enough that her husband had built up a clear picture of how the family worked and what they valued. He had shared that picture with Adrienne over many years of evening conversations, the way people who work in complicated industries talk to their partners at the end of a long day. He had passed away 4 years ago. Adrienne had kept the bakery and stayed in Crest Home because her life was there and she was not the kind of person who ran from things. She did not know the details of Dominic's current operations. She was clear about that. What she had was years of accumulated context. The shape of the thing rather than the contents. She told Soraya that the Yoon operation was not the kind that announced itself. It worked through property holdings, logistics networks, and business structures that were mostly legal and always carefully managed. It had been built over 2 generations to be invisible from the outside. The kind of power that did not need to be seen because it was already holding things up from underneath. She told Soraya about Raymond Pye. He ran a competing network out of Milwaukee. Younger, faster, and considerably less careful than Dominic. He had been trying to establish a presence in Crest Home for 2 years and Dominic had quietly blocked every attempt. The library campaign was useful to him as a pressure tool. A way to create public noise, attract outside attention, and force the Yoon operation into visibility it had spent years avoiding. Visible operations made errors. Errors created openings. Soraya listened to all of it without speaking. When Adrienne finished, she refilled both cups without asking. Why are you telling me this? Soraya said. Because you are the only person involved in this situation who is not trying to gain something for yourself, Adrienne said. That makes you the most unpredictable person in the room. You deserve to know what room you are standing in. Soraya was quiet for a moment. He never told me, she said. He could not tell you at the beginning. And by the time he wanted to, you were already too far into the fight. She stayed up past midnight searching. She found him just before she was about to stop. A regional business journal. A city gala photograph. He was in the background, half turned. She almost missed him entirely. She printed the page. She did not look away from it for a long time. She did not sleep that night. She sat at the kitchen table with the printed page long after the room went quiet. She had a closed federal property review. A trade interview where he said almost nothing personal. A man who came to her library twice a week for 2 years while his company planned to take it apart. She thought about what Adrian had said. He could not tell you at the beginning. And by the time he wanted to, you were already too far into the fight. She thought about Thursday. Same chair. Same legal pad. Left at 12:15 without stopping at the desk. She had watched him go and said nothing because she was not ready. She was ready now. She arrived at the library before 7 on Tuesday morning. She had the photograph. She had the full folder. She had made strong coffee at 4 in the morning and written nothing down because everything she needed to say was already clear in her head. She stood near the entrance when the door opened at 10:15. Dominic stepped in and stopped when he saw her. He looked at her face and went very still. "My office, please," she said. He followed her. She closed the door. She did not sit. She placed the photograph on the desk face up and turned it toward him. He looked at it. He looked at her. He did not say it was not him. He did not offer an explanation before she asked for one. He simply waited. "The full truth this time," she said. "All of it." And he told her. He told her about the syndicate without using that exact word, but she understood what the word was. He explained how it worked. The logistics routes. The property holdings across 3 states. The relationships with city officials built carefully over many years. He told her what he had inherited from his father and what he had changed and what he had kept. He told her why Crest Home mattered to the wider operation. He told her about Raymond Pye and what moving into Crest Home would mean for a network like his. He told her everything in the same calm, even voice he used for everything, which made it harder to hear somehow, because it meant this was not a performance. This was simply who he was. When he finished, the office was quiet. She looked at the window. She could see the front steps of the library from where she stood. The campaign sign in the glass. Walter setting up the petition table without being asked the way he had done every morning for 3 weeks. Then she turned back to him. "You came here because it was quiet," she said. "But everything complicated was already moving before you ever said a word to me. And you kept coming anyway. You just never told me that." He had nothing to say to that. There was nothing to say. "I need you to leave," she said. "Please." He stood. He picked up his coat. At the door he paused. "Soraya," he said. "Please go," she said. He went. He did not come on Thursday. He did not come the following Tuesday or the Thursday after that. The library carried on the same as always. Devon reshelved. Walter held his post at the petition table. James still arrived each morning and sat in the periodicals section with a book open on his lap. On the 3rd day, Soraya looked across the room at him and he looked back at her with the steady, patient expression of a man doing a job without drawing attention to it. She did not ask him to leave. She was not entirely sure why. She had already filed her documentation with the council that same week. 41 pages submitted quietly through the public comment process. She had not mentioned it to Devon or Walter. She had simply done it the way she did everything that mattered. Without announcement. On the 9th day, Devon said quietly, "The council hearing is in 2 days." "I know," Soraya said. "We have 1,847 signatures." "I know." Is that enough? Soraya straightened the folder on her desk. I am going to make it enough, she said. She stayed until midnight. The council chamber was built to hold 200 people. There were 311 inside it when Soraya arrived. She knew because she counted while she was finding her seat. She counted things when she was nervous. It was a habit she had never managed to break. Walter was in the third row. He had worn a collared shirt, which she had never seen him do in the library, and something shifted quietly in her chest when she noticed it. Devon was standing near the side wall with her phone ready to document everything. Adrian Cho sat in the fifth row with her hands folded, looking like a woman who had seen decisions made in difficult rooms before and was not afraid of this one. Soraya took her seat and waited to be called. She had submitted her documentation through the public comment process the week before. She had 7 years of library records. She had the 41 pages of development filings. She had the shell company chain traced from Hartwell Urban Solutions through 4 layers to the controlling name. She had a prepared statement she had rewritten 4 times. She had not used Dominic's name anywhere. She did not need to. The documents made the case without it. When her name was called, she walked to the podium. She spoke for 22 minutes. She did not raise her voice once. She showed how the development proposal had moved through the planning process in less time than the standard review required. She showed 3 companies sharing addresses at different stages of the filing process. She showed the timeline of council correspondence and identified the gaps. She laid the documents out in the order a person would need to follow them, and she explained each step clearly enough that nobody in the room could claim not to understand. A representative from Raymond Pai's foundation stood up partway through and offered a counter-statement. He was smooth and well prepared. Soraya let him finish completely. Then she opened the second section of her folder and addressed each of his points in order, with a source and a page number for every one. The room was very still by the end. The council chair called a recess. When they returned, he announced that the vote would be postponed pending an independent review of the planning process. Raymond Pai's foundation had been flagged for a conflict of interest assessment. The library was not coming down tonight. Soraya gathered her papers and walked out through the side exit. She stood on the steps in the cold air and breathed. Footsteps behind her. Dominic was at the bottom of the steps. Dark coat. Hands in his pockets. He had been in the back row for the past hour and had not moved once. He had not spoken to anyone. He had not intervened in anything. He had simply been there. You did not need me, he said. No, she said. A pause. But you came anyway, she said. Yes. She looked at him. Why? He took a slow breath. It was the most unguarded thing she had ever seen him do. Because it mattered to you, he said. Soraya looked at him for a long moment in the cold and the quiet. Then she walked down the steps toward him. She did not stop when she reached him. She kept walking. But she walked close enough that their arms almost touched as she passed. She did not look back. But she did not walk fast either. 6 months later, the library was still standing. The independent review had taken 9 weeks. The development proposal had been restructured around a different land parcel 3 blocks to the east. The library had received a heritage building designation that made future demolition attempts considerably more difficult. Soraya had framed the official letter and hung it just inside the front door, where the first thing anyone saw when they walked in was proof that the building had been worth fighting for. Devon had been promoted to assistant director. It was a title Soraya created because Devon had earned something that the existing structure had no name for. Walter won the library's first Tuesday evening trivia night by 11 clear points and was gracious about it for approximately 3 minutes before mentioning his score 2 more times. Adrian Cho expanded the bakery into the empty unit next door. She placed 2 small tables near the window that faced the library entrance. She said it was for the light. Soraya believed her completely. The Yoon Holdings name had appeared in the independent review report as a party of interest in the planning process inquiry. Nothing criminal had been found. The legal structure was too carefully built for that. But the name was now part of a public document, which meant the quiet invisibility that had made certain things possible was no longer quite as complete as it had been. Dominic still came on Tuesdays and Thursdays. He still sat in the corner. He still used a legal pad. He still left at 12:15 on most Tuesdays. Soraya had come to understand that some things were not simply habits. They were decisions a person kept making every day because the alternative was a life that had less in it. James had moved from the periodicals section to the reading room near the back of the building. Nobody commented on this. It simply happened gradually, the way most things in the library happened, without announcement. On a Tuesday in late spring, Soraya was at the circulation desk at 12:13. She had returns to process, an email to finish, and 3 things sitting in the urgent folder. She was busy. She stopped what she was doing without deciding to. She was waiting. She had not planned to wait. She did not particularly like that she was waiting. But there it was. The door opened at 12:15. She picked up her work before he reached the desk. He stopped at the counter. He had nothing to return. He had never borrowed anything from this library in 2 years. He simply stood there. Soraya reached under the desk without looking up and placed a library card application form on the counter between them. She set a pen beside it. He looked at the form. He was quiet for a moment in the way that meant he understood what it was actually about. A library card was not about borrowing. It was about being in the system. It was about choosing to be a documented presence in this building after 2 years of arriving and leaving without a single record that he had ever been there. It was about not hiding anymore. Not here. He picked up the pen and filled out the form. His handwriting was still extremely neat. He slid it back. She processed it. She printed the card. She held it out across the counter. He took it. Their fingers met briefly and neither of them moved for just a moment. "You are exactly on time," she said. "I am always exactly on time," he said. She looked up from the desk for the first time. "I know," she said.